Now it's time to start the podcast. This is Iowa City's favorite podcast about local music. It's probably the only one.
Yeah.
There's others, maybe. I know of other music podcasts, but they don't bill themselves as Iowa City's local music podcast, you know.
Yeah.
This is a monthly feature on the Rock Hard Caucus podcast feed. Used to be a weekly radio show, so I'm sorry that the production schedule has decreased significantly in the past 8 years. I started doing that in 2017, I just realized.
Yeah.
And it's now January of 2025.
Yeah, I still think about the 2010s like yesterday.
Yeah. And we're halfway through the 2020s now.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous.
Yep.
Well, for the January 2025 edition of iHearIC Radio, I am sitting here across the table from... I was thinking about how to introduce you. Let's see. You are a coworker, a union brother, and friend, Ion Alexakis.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show, actually, because we did do one episode of this years ago before the merger of my two podcast streams.
Yeah, that's right. I think that was deep in the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I didn't go back to listen to it because what I remember of it is I was very depressed, and it was probably super low energy.
Yeah. I think that was probably on both sides of that conversation.
So
I'm
now
sure.
we will be super high energy. That's our
That's
brand.
our thing.
Both of us are very
Yep.
excitable
Yeah.
young men.
Yes, absolutely. As I sit here with a broken back, almost is what it feels like.
Yeah, what happened? You said that you told me before we started recording that you threw your back out.
Yeah. I did a maintenance shift at Hampshire yesterday, and basically it was about 5 minutes into the first task of shuffling around some stage weights. But I worked a Broadway show about a month ago, which was pretty intense, and after that, like, I felt a little sore, but it wasn't like painful, so I didn't think much of it, but it kind of carried over. And it was sort of like, oh, I should, so like I did some stretching and stuff, sort of threw out, and it all kind of felt fine. And just yesterday, I don't even know. So, yep.
Yeah. Cumulative effect of the kind of work that you've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
We can talk about that maybe later, but I want to make sure we get to it right away. The real reason that I'm having you on the show right now is that you are releasing an EP, and I plan on releasing this episode the same day as the EP, so we can talk about it as if it was present.
Nice. Cool.
So you have just now released an EP called Broken Glass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I already know most of the songs on it.
Sure.
I've heard them because I've seen you play many times. And I wanted to ask you, like, this has taken a while, right, for you to put these songs out into the world? Yeah.
I guess I would say most of these songs sort of started like rooting, I guess, leaning into the pandemic almost. And it sort of just, they all sort of evolved from there, from being like sketches or sort of ideas, and where sort of I would say the course of the last, I guess, 4 years at this point, where it all sort of began to actually take shape and sort of form from sort of ideas and sketches into the sort of pieces that they are.
Yeah. So you've been kind of like cooking these for a long time.
Yeah.
How closely do you think they resemble like the sketches that they were at the beginning?
Pretty close. I mean, I would say the sort of the energy and the content of the songs, it was all kind of happening in real time, between what was going on in the world, what was going on, sort of on a personal level, what was going on, like with what we were dealing with, between things at work and also the protests that were happening and the other things that had sort of been occurring sort of around us, and just reflecting on the sort of experience and the mindset as we were sort of going through all this stuff in real time. So
all of that sort of inserted itself into the songs that you were working on.
Yeah. And while also like simultaneously like performing all of these songs, even though they were kind of halfway there and half not. And that's kind of a big part of my, I guess, process as far as finalizing songs or like writings or the collection or just, I guess, like a set itself.
Sure.
Even.
Yeah.
So
I think that is a part of the like music making process that I don't know, maybe we actually do kind of share this in common because you and I make mostly pretty different types of music.
Yeah.
But you, in the process of performing these songs repeatedly over the past several years, they develop through that process of you like doing it live in front of people.
Yeah. And, you know, I would say sort of the primary point being, or primary, instrument, I guess, so to speak, would just be my voice and even how the lines or the bars sort of, the cadence of them. And it's hard for me to translate into the studio in the same way that it translates on stage. And I think that's kind of a weird balance battle that I have within myself of being on stage versus working on something in the studio.
Sure. Yeah.
Where I'm often thinking about the performance of it more so than I am thinking about the recorded version of it, which I think is kind of opposite of what a lot of people who are sort of in that hip hop realm, and how they're operating.
Yeah, and I can see how, I mean, I hear like stand-up comedians talk about this all the time, where like they're doing the same bits over and over in front of audiences, but like the energy that they get back from the audience ends up like shifting the material into something better, hopefully.
Yeah.
Is that what it is for you? Like some sort of like energy from a live audience?
Yeah, I think it's that's part of it. It's also, part of it is also, I guess, kind of what happens to myself and how I respond. Or
so there's internal.
Yeah.
There's a different mindset like in a live moment versus a studio sort of a siloed off.
Yeah.
Solitary moment.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's kind of just the ceremonious part of performing and like why we perform, and, you know, in the sense of how, you know, a solo, you're going to react while you're performing like a solo of some kind. And it's kind of sort of that same mindset of what you're sort of taking yourself through when you're performing.
Right. And that energy is like what that moment like sort of forces upon you and your brain and your body and the nerves and everything is like kind of impossible to recreate that, I think. In like a studio setting. Yes.
And I often have a hard time.
The pressure.
Yeah. And I have a hard time like recreating the sort of energy that comes off just way more organically and natural on stage than it does in a controlled setting, so to speak, of being in front of a microphone by myself. Like, so that's always the balance.
So we should listen to some of this.
Okay.
I've got the 7 tracks in front of me.
Sure.
This is an EP.
Yeah.
Which I'm always curious what people think about the distinctions between like these different types of releases.
Yeah.
I think your Broken Glass EP is like just under half an hour. Am I remembering that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
I don't remember what the rules are.
No, I don't know.
Because I'm sure some people would probably be fine calling this an album, but you chose like a sort of honesty, I think, in calling it an EP.
Yeah.
But of these 7, is there one that you feel would be like a good first impression, or like maybe reflect some of what we were just talking about?
I mean, the single is always, the First World Problems is definitely like, that's a one in regards to like when it's on stage, it always feels most natural and sort of in like, I feel very comfortable with that one. And I wanted to make sure that I could capture sort of that organic space of like, this is where I am, and this is where making sure that reflects as well into the recording. So that's always a good one.
It's a good high energy one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one that always, like, when I see you play, that's always one of my favorites to experience. Let's listen to it.
Okay.
And people who listen to Rock Hard Caucus have already heard this at least twice.
Yeah.
But no harm in hearing it again. First World Problems by Ion Alexakis from the new EP, Broken Glass. And yeah, high energy. I love every time there's that beat with the snare. It's just every beat.
Yeah.
It's super fun. And if you haven't seen it live, it's even more fun in person. That's all you, right? Like everything on that track you made.
Yeah. Yep. That track is 100% me. Yep.
Do you know where that snare sample is from?
Probably no, not specifically.
Yeah, I like it. It's kind of metallic.
Yeah.
A little ringy, but like not too much. It's really fun. I have the lyrics pulled up. I was going to ask you, I think, something about this. Okay, the very beginning of it, like Bourdain in the doorway, like Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's that come from?
That comes from I mean, it's a joke about killing myself, basically.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And despite circumstances or being in a situation.
Oh, I should have read the whole line. Peep my swing like Bourdain in the doorway. That's okay. Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, Anthony Bourdain, who I think hung himself. Maybe that's not totally accurate, but I'm pretty sure he hung himself.
I don't recall, but yeah.
And it's just, even somebody who has what many describe as probably the coolest job in the world, and are very successful, even finding themselves at a moment of being like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And there's so much about existence that is like, it's all about survival. It's all about survival. And even in a first world country or extremely, corporate capitalist run system, where it's just all about success, that you're still finding yourself on this plane of like just having to push through and survive. And yeah, it's that whole thing of like
even people who do succeed within that system.
Yeah. And even though there's places in the world where survival is is the priority down to its like basic needs of what what is necessary to just push through into the next day, and I kind of just what that means on the different planes of existence between like the America versus like some other third world country where that sort of term of survival is completely different.
Right. Yeah, we live in a land of plenty, so survival is like objectively easier.
Right.
Yeah. And yet, even despite a simpler life, or a not even simpler, but a simpler set of tasks to keep yourself alive, do you want to?
Yeah.
So, how serious is that? Like, have you contemplated suicide before?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, all the time, I suppose.
Really?
I mean,
all the time?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's all the time or frequently, or like, is it worth it to like keep this up? And even saying that just now of like, man, that feels pretty privileged to be like,
sure.
Man, I'm not even going to bother with it while there's so many other things going on. So,
well, that's kind of like a thing to think about that maybe will encourage you not to do that.
Yeah.
Like there's things that you can do with your life that will ease the suffering of others.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how I talk myself out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's like, despite like, working myself till I'm broken, or like still not feeling successful, or my bank account telling me that I'm not successful, like I still feel pretty good, and like I have it pretty good. So it's conflicting. It's conflicting, and it's not it's not easy. So
that's kind of what the song is about, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, objectively, your life's pretty good, but, like, there's still things that make you hate being alive sometimes.
Yeah. Just angry.
Yeah, yeah. There's also a bit, where was that? I'll never forget when America took my name from me. Is that like your family immigrating? Is that about that?
There's some of that. There's a lot to do with quite literally my name of growing up, and in grade school I went by my middle name, which is Samuel, often Sam. And that was kind of that was sort of just an existence that happened. Knowing that like I had a different name that didn't mean much to me, and it was kind of, no pun intended, but felt pretty foreign as far as understanding who I was sort of at that time. And then
sure. You mean like the name Giannis?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not something that really came about regularly until it had to, which is kind of trying to apply for schools and for colleges and stuff. So there's kind of this balance of like, all right, well, so like this is who I've been, but now who's this person? And I think a lot of that was like Sam kind of happened, I think, because it was a lot of teachers really just being in Iowa and like,
sure.
Like that just didn't want to really deal with like learning how to say this
yeah,
name
I mean,
correctly.
If you look at a sheet of paper and you see IOANNIS.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the easiest.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a relatively common name in Greece.
Sure.
So it's just, yeah. So there's always kind of been this duality of who I am. And like, I run into people who I went to high school with, and they still are like, oh, hey, Sam. And now that's starting to feel a little awkward of like, oh, wow, that was like a long time ago, man. Like,
right. Yeah.
But you can't blame anybody who, especially you haven't seen in a long time, for like not staying up to it or whatever. So
sure. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I like that song. You were fortunate enough to have this EP reviewed in this month's issue of Little Village.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Kent Williams, who is an old friend of the program, actually used to play iHearIC live shows a lot back in the day. He reviewed Broken Glass, and about that song, First World Problems, he says it's as influenced by both Radiohead and Mobb Deep.
Yeah.
Care to comment on your influences?
I couldn't pinpoint artists specifically. I think it was more of a mindset of where I was at that moment specifically. I think the beat kind of came first, honestly, and I think this beat started after we got tear gassed. I think this was one of those moments of like, all right, it's time to like, I was still kind of reeling from that and like wanted to build something that reflected how I felt and how so many of us felt after getting bombarded with tear gas and flashbangs.
Right.
Here in Iowa City. So, I think the lyrics all kind of took a different shape as things sort of progressed. As I said, it's kind of a long form, so other things occurred sort of throughout before it really hit its final form. But I think,
yeah, I mean, in a couple months will be 5 years since we got tear gas.
Yeah.
What was the date? June
the 3rd.
June 3rd, 2020. I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I remember the emotional breakdown when I got home.
Yeah.
After seeing, children tear gassed and people throwing up on the side of the road.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it, but
no.
It shaped my outlook for the years since.
Yep.
I've been a different person a little bit.
Yep.
And actually, that might be a good opportunity to play Riot Dog.
Sure.
Maybe. because it has like, well, here Kent says that it's anchored in a compellingly cruddy drum loop. But what stood out more to me in Riot Dog is there's like a constant kind of a siren sound in it, right?
Yeah.
That's this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
Because there's also a song called Sirens, but...
Yes. No, yeah. Riot Dog, a little more abstract structurally. I think sort of the presentation of the lyrics are a little more of a monologue, and it's kind of like a speech, I guess, as far as how it's presented.
Right. Yeah, this one I think probably is my favorite of the EP.
Oh,
did I say that about First World Problems already? That's maybe my favorite one to hear live, but
sure.
I think Riot Dog is like the most sort of interesting one to dig into on the EP.
Yeah.
And by the way, the compellingly cruddy drum loop, as Kent Williams says, that you're about to hear was made by Brian Lewis Smith.
Yeah. Yep. Brian Lewis Smith. Brian was one of the many people who I sort of reached out to in the sort of deep in the lockdown era of like, yeah, you got any sounds or samples you can send my way? And that was something that came about from that. Definitely a big fan of his work and Jack Lyon, which is the group he is in. Yeah.
This is a coincidence. They are playing at Trumpet Blossom tonight, the night that the podcast comes out. So yeah. I will be at that show.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my way down there for sure.
Cool. Yeah, it should be fun. Anyway, we should play Riot Dog for the people, and then I don't know, we'll talk more after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a bit of a cacophony to that song that I think is what I dig about it. There is that siren thing, but it's like real background. It's just a constant sort of going up and down over and over in the background. And the like delay effect on your voice sort of adds a little bit of like disorientation to it, where like you can follow what you're saying, but there's like it's being scattered. Your voice is like repeating and overlapping on itself a little bit.
Yeah.
This isn't the only song where you do that, but like it's one example.
Yeah. Well, and it's pretty. It's consistent throughout the whole thing. I was actually really happy with how this one came out, just because I wasn't sure where it was going to go. Part of the lyrics were kind of pulled from other places that I'd been sitting on, and it I guess the space I was in the midst of this coming together was pretty reflective of this track sonically. And
how much of that did Brian do? Was it just like that drum machine thing?
It was really just that. It was really just that loop that was there, and just building off of that. Yeah, there is something about it that just really caught me.
Mm-hmm. That outro is interesting too, because it kind of just like abruptly we're hearing these like synth voices that are getting like chopped off. And where did that come from?
I don't remember. Somewhere.
Yeah. Did you play that? Was it like a keyboard thing?
Yeah. There's a sample I pulled from something or somewhere. I might have pulled that off of. Honestly, I might have just pulled that straight off the radio.
Nice.
I think
illegal sampling, my favorite.
So I couldn't even tell you what it was. So hopefully they don't find me.
We'll see if the YouTube detector finds you out.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, where can people hear this? Where is it going to be released? Or where has it been released? Sorry, I forgot it's Friday as we speak.
It should be everywhere. I would always encourage people to go to Bandcamp. But of course it's everywhere. It's on Spotify, which I kind of feel a little icky about, but
yeah. What's your Bandcamp address?
It is theonlyion.bandcamp.com.
Okay, cool.
So,
okay, two things that I want to follow up on there. Mm-hmm. Your Bandcamp page. I was going through like what I already had from you before you sent me these tracks, and I had a version of what is now Sirens. On this. Yeah. That you released in 2019. So just to prove to people how long you've been working on these tracks.
Yeah.
Sirens, which is on the Broken Glass EP, was once released as a song called Broken Glass.
Yes.
And I pulled them up next to each other to see how different it was.
Yeah. How different was it?
Well, it's definitely mastered better. Yeah. But it's clearly like the same samples.
Yep.
So it hasn't like totally changed its identity, but there's also like a bit of a longer outro in the original release.
Yeah. I think that was probably just when I probably finished like writing the song, and it was like, oh, this is a whole song. Like I'm stoked to like, and just wanted to get it out because I was excited about it. And of course regretted that decision later on. And
it's not available on the Bandcamp anymore. I noticed.
No, I think I took it off as soon as I sort of had this collection of songs together. Yeah. And was ready to sort of really lock them in or and get them to the place that I actually wanted them.
Right, yeah. Other thing I wanted to follow up on is Spotify. Mm-hmm. You feel icky about it. I think people probably already understand why, but like, did you consider not putting it on Spotify?
I did. I put it, I went back and forth with it for a second, but honestly not too long. I think when the day comes that we all decide we're going to walk away from it, I think I will, or I'll take it off Spotify next week. I'm still kind of going through the motions of it.
Sure. Yeah, everybody, if you're listening to the podcast now and you think that we should all just pull all of our material off of Spotify today, well, then it's time you lead the charge. Yeah. We'll follow you.
Yeah.
Because I've never made any money at all. I have a bunch of stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I just put something else up there yesterday. And it's like, I'm not going to make any money off this. Yeah. And I don't really want them to have it. But like, this is the platform that people are listening to music on.
Yeah, it is. It is the platform, and it's a battle, and it's that dude is definitely like probably in my top 5 I want a box list. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was hard to sort of navigate on if it's going to do more harm than good, or even just like, am I going to be, are people going to judge me because in so many ways I operate on one sort of lane of values, and then here I am like putting it up on Spotify, like, right, yeah. That whole kind of thing. But like,
it's like, you're not allowed to have an iPhone if you criticize, global capitalism.
Yeah. It's, I guess if I was making money on it, it'd probably be a little different, but like, it's like, I mean, even in the sense of like trying to submit for like the playlist curators, it's like, that's not even going in any positive direction for me. So
yeah. I mean, obviously there's like going to be like some level of hypocrisy, and like we're kind of trapped in this, like we're not the people in power. But
right.
if you listen to this, I would encourage you, do everything you can to not support Spotify and like actually buy music by people off of Bandcamp, because that does a lot more for them. And you've probably heard this a million times before, but please, God, if you're listening to this, you at least care a little bit, right? So
yeah, right.
So do what you can to support artists on Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm.
The last Wombat album we did not put on Spotify per Will Yeager's request. He's more principled than me. So
yeah, good on him.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, it's really not. It's not even an argument, really. It's like, well, we're not going to really gain anything from it being on there. So,
yeah, so it's. At this point, I'm just like, I'm more curious about hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions on the project.
Mm-hmm.
And that of course is, as we said, that's kind of where everybody's at. So putting it on there is just kind of where it seemed it was a good place. But
yeah, I mean, there's a percentage of people that will never hear it if you don't put it on there.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to change that.
Yeah.
Other than just like forcibly shut down the company.
Right. And box that dude.
Let's listen to another one. And which one do you think we should listen to? Maybe another one with like a collaborator would be good.
Yeah. Let's see. Heavy collaboration. It's either going to be track 7 or track 1 has a couple folks on it.
Let's listen to track 7, because I know that has some former guests of this program on it.
Oh, nice.
That's the one with Blake and Tara, right?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Blake Shaw and Tara McGovern both featured on the closing track of Broken Glass, which is called Punk Surprises. And you do some wordplay in there. Punk Surprises alternates with what's the other phrase that sounds like Punk Surprises?
Oh man, I'm totally spacing.
You know your own lyrics. Right? It's
Puncture Prizes.
Puncture Prizes.
Yes.
Punk Surprises, Puncture Prizes.
Yep.
And I probably wouldn't know if I had not actually read the text.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know the difference.
Mm.
So now that I've spoiled that for everyone listening, see if you can hear when he's saying Punk Surprises and when he's saying Puncture Prizes.
Yeah.
So what have I got to say to this martyr with magic? Conflicting sex appeal, a bit short of the tragic. No matter how hard I try, I keep crawling on back. So call me an addict, we're back to the basics. Control the rations, and that's when I win. Punk surprises, punk surprises. But it never meant the much. I could get used to this early silk touch. Up to think much more than my alter ego when the crimes called me illegal. But what have I got to do when I learn a brutal truth hanging on my tools? Yes, I have stood in the killer's shoes, but what's there to lose? Well, there's time, and I need a little bit longer as the patterns perpetuate. The police state's getting stronger, and I remain across the line. The sorry, no, it's the weary, because I'm not the person you were ever meant to fear. All it takes, one defeat of my flesh, keep my flames at the highest stakes. Well, there's a heat wave that we hate before I prove my wasted brain a leeway. Call it my dreamscape. What have I got to say to this mortal with magic? Conflicting sex appeal, a bit short of the tragic. No matter how hard I try, I keep crawling on back. So call me an addict, we're back to the basics. Cut short of the rations, and that's when I win. Punk surprises, punk surprises. Surprises, oh surprises, oh surprises, oh surprises.
Punk Surprises, the closing track off of Broken Glass. And that features Blake Shaw on the cello and Tara McGovern on the fiddle. I'm being very careful with the terminology I use for the instrument.
Sure, yeah.
Not violin, but fiddle. And that's you playing the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And this is another one where I've seen you play this song for years.
Mm-hmm.
I've known this one for a long time. Did Blake and Tara come up with their own parts?
Yeah,
because there's that part that's very distinctive, like at the end of a verse or whatever.
Yeah, this song and Sirens are the two songs that were kind of already there pre-2020. This song is actually like a decade old, honestly. And yeah, they came up with their own parts. What did I say? I reached out to Tara and I said, like, I need fiddle on the song, but I need like dusty back road moonshine fiddle or something like that. And they nailed it. That was like all they needed. I think I sent a couple reference tracks too, which was like, I know one of the songs I sent was off the soundtrack for Cold Mountain.
Cold Mountain?
Yeah, it's like a terrible Civil War movie.
Okay. Cool. Okay, but yeah, you want that like 19th century fiddle.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that distinction between like what the instrument is and fiddle. It's right. I don't want that one. I want the fiddle. Like, so yeah, and we had played the song I think a couple times too prior to recording. We've all done a couple sets together.
And this kind of leads into something else that comes up in Kent's review that I was kind of curious about. So, like, this is a hip hop release. You are a hip hop artist, right?
Yeah, sure.
But is that song hip hop at all?
And it's the lyrical cadence.
Yeah, I guess like your vocal rhythm is
Yeah. And it was a song that I'd written, which is embarrassing to say now, but I wanted to be able to write a song where I could play guitar and rap at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what came about. You know, when people ask, I say that it's all sort of hip hop canvassed. And that's kind of the baseline, and it sort of stems out from there in a couple different directions.
Yeah, I think most people are not really so within the genre boxes anymore. You know, I feel like everybody listens to everything.
Yeah.
And so there's probably like a main vein of what you're doing, but like you're obviously not only interested in one kind of music.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's and people seem very fascinated about it until you try to submit it for Spotify playlists. I have something in my...
okay. Do you feel like they really want you to be like narrowed down to the...
Yeah, I have something in my email of where they were like, it was for First World Problems, where they were like, yeah, so you paid to try and get this on a playlist, and
you had to pay for it?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And you sort of pitch it out there, and no one took it. And the hip hop curators say it's too rock, and the rock curators say it's too hip hop, and neither of them want it, kind of thing.
As if nu metal didn't happen 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah. So that's those. I think that's a whole thing within that system of like they're keeping everything very straight laced. Within the parameters of what is sort of mainstream or commercial.
Yeah.
But
this is why people need to like actually like materially support artists that they know.
Yeah, because no one
like there's no path.
Yeah, and no one operates like that.
There's no path to success.
No,
other than intentionally creating art.
Yes,
that very closely hews to like algorithmically.
Yes,
acceptable.
Yep.
Stuff.
And we got some of those here too. We have some of them here in town. Absolutely.
Tell me about them.
Yeah. Some other time.
So the thing that I wanted to pick out here from Kent's review, which is kind of on the same subject, he writes, all kinds of music, describes the tracks on Broken Glass. All kinds of music was in quotes, which I think makes the sentence structure work better. It reads better with your eyes than me speaking it. And anyway,
yeah.
While hip-hop is clearly the root of Ion's music, his productions and collaborations are not the standard loopy boom bap of commercial hip-hop. So he's a little critical of commercial hip-hop.
Sure.
So are you like intentionally avoiding loopy boom bap?
No, not intentionally. Not intentionally avoiding anything, only sort of pushing towards what feels natural in sort of how the songs came together and how they took shape and took form. Songs like Punk Surprises and Pilots, where it's a way more stripped back, even for like a final version, I feel like, of a song.
Yeah, if you didn't notice, there was no beat to that last song at all.
Yeah,
just the guitar.
Yeah. So those were more specifically in how they came together, both in their creation, but also how I've been performing them for the last few years. And that's kind of where I left them. And I left them that way because there's room potentially of where I'd like to see them come back around in maybe a different format.
Sure. Yeah. I kind of like the process here where like you wrote something a long time ago and like sort of accepted that they were not maybe the complete iteration of themselves. And you, over the course of years now, you've allowed them to sort of find themselves. I guess this is something that I occasionally have conversations with people about. Like, when you are like working on music, how much do you feel like you are consciously yourself making decisions versus like something is like using you, like the idea of like a muse or whatever, like whatever this idea is, you are like the vessel, sort of bringing that into reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back and goes back and forth, only in the sense of that you sort of have to you have to kind of stay in it, on the sense of just what you have to do with the technology to like get the song done and get the pieces down. And I think there's a lot of that when it comes to the creation of like the beat. Lyrically, I think it goes somewhere else, and somewhere that's a little more kind of metaphysical I mean, even with the songs that are older, like they were written for the reasons they were written. And even now I find different reasons for why some of the lines are what the lines are, or like the meaning of has evolved with what else has transpired, like in the world or in the space that I'm in of,
right.
And just the chaos of like
past 5 years.
Yeah, of the past 5 years of where I wrote something because of what was happening at that moment. And then now, because this is happening, that line is like, or the part of that song is like still just as relevant.
There's a sort of cyclical nature to it.
Yeah.
Where like this collection of words came to you at a certain moment.
Yeah.
And then you continue living your life with that collection of words in your head.
Yeah.
So the words themselves are also having some impact on like your life after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, for Riot Dog, like Riot Dog was at a very specific chaotic moment of sort of like me internally, like where we were at with unionizing, where, sort of the local mindset of the Black Lives Matter movement was, and what we were doing and what was happening in town. Mm-hmm. Also sort of what was being confrontational in regards to that, both on a personal level and also sort of just on a bigger scope.
Right.
And sonically, that's like a song that it just feels very accurate for the multiple points of where my trajectory was aiming.
There's a ton of tension there.
Yeah.
And like a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
With like the elements of that's like out of your personal control. Like obviously most of it. Mm-hmm. And then like what is under your control, like all these potential paths ahead of you, and like what do I do? What's the right thing to do? How do I like fill my role in this in like the way that I should be?
Right. Yeah.
And how do I not fuck up?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really big one for sure.
Speaking of unionizing, another little bit here in Kent's review that I wanted to ask you about, because he writes, you're a known member of this community. Aside from your artistic output, like a lot of people recognize you, and like they come to our place of employment and see you do the work that you do, and they we all know each other.
Yep.
Right. So Kent writes a little bit about that in the beginning of his review, including you've been active musically in Iowa City for years, working as a producer, singer, and MC. Your day job as a production supervisor at the Angler is a perfect extension of your artistic pursuits. So we called you a supervisor.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Are you my boss?
No.
This whole podcast has been a setup for me to ask you that on record.
Yeah.
You are not my boss.
No.
Is that your title? I don't remember. It's changed a couple times.
It has changed a couple times, and I think it's actually changed to that. And it's very possible he just pulled that off the website. because I think it did shift to that title from the building's perspective relatively recently.
Okay.
And overall, I'm like, my space is, I don't even think about it anymore. And it's just like, you can call me Susan if it works out, like it's not something I'm paying attention to. So I'm sort of in the space of like, yeah, do whatever you do and put whatever in front of it you need to put in front of it to like make you feel better or, but yeah, I mean, it's ongoing.
And we should probably start wrapping up, but I do want to, on that same subject, ask you like how much, like, has your understanding of labor relations evolved over the past few years, and how much has that influenced maybe your lyrical content? And on the flip side of that, the work itself, which is very audio production focused, how do you feel like you developed those skills more over the past few years, and has that influenced the production aspect of Broken Glass?
I've learned a lot about labor relations in the past few years, probably in a relatively unhealthy sense as far as mental health and awareness or stability. Definitely moments of like hyper focus and insomnia of how conversations how these conversations go. And there's a lot of that in the lyrical content of Broken Glass overall.
I forget which song it is, but like you literally talk about your labor in one of them. Maybe not even just one.
Yeah, I know it's mentioned a couple places. I know there's a line about wages, first world problems. There's definitely a line about.
Oh yeah, it's in First World Problems. There's pride in my labor. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely in Riot Dog. There's references in regards of having to push back against sort of the management and sort of the common exploitation of the workforce that isn't, I was dealing with on a very, and we were all dealing with on a very personal level.
Right.
But it's literally, yes. And, but it's also, I mean, it wasn't just here. I mean, and it's everywhere and it's all over the place. And I think Iowa City in general, I think there's a really big issue in sort of taking advantage of such a transitional population. Yeah. And that, not only should that transitional population be exploited, but even those of us who live here and work in restaurants or work wherever, we sort of get vacuumed into that. And that's kind of something that I think is a pretty big problem and what we experience here. Mm-hmm. It's a big topic there in the project.
Yeah. The other question was, has your day job influenced like the production aspect of the music?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, a little bit. I definitely, with the work and working so many concerts, it's definitely a lot harder to work on music in my own time. I think no matter how many concerts, you work, it's never going to be, or events or whatever, it's never any less stimulating. So working in restaurants, it was like a lot easier to work an 8 or 10 hour day and then go home and work on music for 3 hours. It's a little different when it's, working concerts. It's just a lot. And because
it takes up that like energy.
Yeah, it takes up that energy. I mean, and there's an aspect of the work too, where especially at the Englert, where we're pretty hands-on in a very direct sense of creativity that comes into the work itself.
Yeah.
And so there's sort of that mentality and that sort of those brain waves, I guess, kind of get drained easier and more so in the workday than.
Yeah, I didn't think to ask you about it in that respect. How like that the work actually like subsumes some of your creative potential, like stuff that I don't know. It sort of drains.
Yeah.
It drains some of that energy that you could be putting towards your own work.
Yeah.
And so it takes 5 years to put out it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm glad these songs are done, and I'm glad they're out there. And I'm hoping that sort of the motivation of these being out will help push me a little further in just maintaining some sense of consistency. On a more regular sense.
Yeah. Don't wait until 2030 for the next one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Again, people, go to theonlyion.bandcamp.com, please, to purchase the EP. Do you have a set price for it?
I think right now, I think it's 7.
The default.
Yeah.
The Bandcamp default.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for a 7-track EP.
Yeah. I think I've always kind of left it as $1 a track kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Go buy it, please. And for the people in your life who refuse to buy music, tell them to stream it on Spotify hundreds of times. Just leave their computer running. Leave the album on a loop. And the thing is, though, if they'll just kick you off of Spotify if they figure out you're doing that. So, can't even game the damn system anymore.
Man.
Or they'll accuse you of it even if you're not doing it. I've seen that's happened to some people before, too. We can't win with these fuckers.
No. Unless we box them.
So maybe we should... I want to play one more at the end, just to close it out. Maybe from the Purge Master.
Yeah.
We'll do an ironic thing where we play the first track at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And you could just stop the podcast now and just go listen to the whole EP. This would be like a transition into hearing it, right? So,
there you go.
All right, so we're going to close the podcast with From the Purge Master, which I know features my friend Ramin Rochandel on the setar, which is a pretty cool way to open this EP.
Yeah.
And I guess anything to say before we shut the mics off and I play the song?
Nah. I don't think so.
All right, check it out, people. Here's Ramin opening up this track, beginning of the Broken Glass EP, and I'll see you next month.
Back on to the latch move. Spill one neck, 2 average in the pitch black. Chris in that hit with a couple of twist cats. Sorted out, swinging, baby, rock with your hips back. Yeah, bitch, get it right for the 5th night. Lacerated kicks that were acting a bit sly. Bad tattoos and passion for the riptide. Cliff dive, go right up to the function. Muscle up, lot of love for the dumb shit. Rough digs, mix it in, it's a big bender. Escalating with variety, a bender to a bender. A bombshell in an effort to counter this murderous killing, dismembering regiment. Elephant taking big steps, we shaking up the rest of it. Reach for the broom, swept under the rug the whole mess. Think less of it, make it all end quick. Cause round here there were ghosts. Serving breakfast before riots. Line them up all sides, find a silver line and break a levee. Get ready, welcome everybody to the main event.